When most people think of Iowa, they might think corn and caucuses, not clean energy. But according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, renewables make up 55% of Iowa's electricity mix. That's the largest renewable share of any state in the country. And in the Midwest, South Dakota, Kansas, and North Dakota aren't far behind. But not everyone is on board.
There is growing pushback in America's heartland against solar power and its expansion. Many landowners are worried about the impact of massive solar fields on things such as property values, runoff water, dust, and noise.
Many farmers, in particular, are pushing back.
We bought out here, built out here, have our life savings invested in these places, and we see it as detrimental to the character of the community. We see it as detrimental to our property values.
As the Strategic Partnerships Manager at Alliant Energy, which serves customers across Iowa and Wisconsin, Nick Peterson spends a lot of time countering this kind of resistance, especially in Iowa.
We serve 88 of the 99 counties here in Iowa, many of them being rural and many of them agriculture being the leading industry driver or economic engine. We get a lot of negative feedback on wind. And then for solar, it's very similar. It's, hey, you're taking up, prime farmland for energy production.
But for Nick, it's not an either-or scenario. And that's thanks to something called agrivoltaics.
Agrivoltaics is looking at how you leverage the land under solar panels for either crop growth, grazing, or even potential conservation.
The practice of agrivoltaics started back in the 1980s in Europe, but in the US, it's been slower to take hold. That is, until recently. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory says the acreage used for solar agrivoltaic farms in the U.S. has actually doubled since 2020. And those farms now generate 10 gigawatts of power every year. That's not too far off from the 15 gigawatts being generated by all the agrivoltaics across Europe.
And so when you look at how we're farming, we're just farming a different type of energy, but it allows the farmer, the landowner, the opportunity to get that dual use where you can still grow something that has a value and also harvest the sun and get that energy value and provide community and economic impact that's going to help our states continue to thrive.
In Iowa, Nick is spearheading the collaboration with Iowa State University, which is an Alliant customer, and the early results look promising.
In the agrivoltaics world, what we often see when we've been going to conferences and meeting with others is this idea that you have to have this bespoke system. What our research has shown is, no, you can buy the suit off the rack, and it works really well. It fits nice, and there's value to that for both sides.
This is With Great Power, a show about the people building the future grid today. I'm Brad Langley. Some people say utilities are slow to change, that they don't innovate fast enough. And while it might not always seem like the most cutting-edge industry, there are lots of really smart people working really hard to make the grid cleaner, more reliable, and customer-centric. Today, my guest is Nick Peterson, Strategic Partnerships Manager for Alliant Energy. He tells me about the multi-year research project that Alliant and Iowa State University are running to better understand the value of installing solar panels over high-value crops. We dig into the project details, look at early results, and talk about why the Department of Energy is supporting it. But first, I asked Nick how the project came to be.
Alliant Energy, in partnership with the Iowa Utilities Commission, had just gotten a tariff that allowed us to build, own, and operate a solar facility on our customers' land and provide a lucrative lease payment to them. We had a pretty innovative CEO at the time, now retired, John Larson, who asked me, hey, do you think we could farm under those panels if we did it out at Iowa State? They're the capital of the world when it comes to agriculture education.
So what was the reaction from Iowa State?
My partner over at the university, Ray Klein, went to faculty and asked them, hey, if you had 10 acres under solar panels, what would you do and what would it look like? In a matter of about 2 weeks, we had a 2-page list of research questions that could be asked. We took that and really focused on what does it need to look like for the faculty and staff at Iowa State to be able to publish good research, provide extension and educational opportunities, but for Alliant Energy still to build a reliable, cost-effective solar asset. So we have both fixed arrays on our 10 acres and we have tracker panels. So it gives the opportunity to really study how vegetation under the panels can grow. We use bifacial panels throughout, so sun bouncing off the back and also from the top. And then one of the other big questions that the researchers posed, which I think makes our farm a little bit different than others in North America, is we designed it with the engineering department to get granular level data that allows us to understand the microclimates under the panels and also the energy production at a granular level so that we know, is it beneficial to grow peppers or broccoli or squash or strawberries, and which one is actually going to help provide more energy? Because that's one thing that we learned from the Department of Energy and NREL is any kind of vegetation under panels is going to help with that cooling effect that allows the panels to uptake more energy.
You and your partners actually just wrapped the first year of this 4-year, $1.8 million DOE grant, which is part of its Farms grant program. So tell me about the team you assembled and what the DOE is hoping comes out of this effort.
We've designed it from an engineering standpoint so that we can answer questions that might be a little bit more difficult had we not come in with this theory of collaboration and really thinking about how strong our large team is, having economists, sociologists, engineers, and horticulture and entomology professionals all in this sandbox at once trying to answer questions. The Department of Energy is very interested in our data of how our fruits and vegetables are growing and in the energy production that's coming out of it. And I think also they're trying to understand, is this economically viable? Can this be replicable in other areas? Really to understand the different ingredients that need to happen to even get this off the ground. You have a utility or a solar developer. In our case, we're a utility. You have a landowner and you have a farmer. Sometimes the farmer and the landowner can be the same person, and sometimes they're completely different. We want to be able to highlight how those three parties interact and look at the lease agreement, what the compensation is going to be, the frameworks. But we also needed a site access and data sharing agreement. And we've learned as we've interacted with other solar farms and other agrivoltaics projects that is a key piece that often gets overlooked once the lease gets assigned, but then becomes usually the go or no go for many of the research institutions or farmers who are looking to leverage the land under the panels.
So it's on 10 acres, multiple different solar arrays. Are you guys, is the team growing different kinds of crops throughout the solar farm to kind of see which perform better? Are you starting to see some returns? Paint the picture for us of kind of what this looks like.
Yeah, so we have them plotted in rows of about 66 feet, I believe. Every 17 panels, we have those granular data points where we can understand the energy production, we can understand the microclimate under the panels due to all the sensors that we have in. And so every 60 so feet, there's a different vegetation type. So we have grass and clover mix for pollinators. We have broccoli, summer squash, and green peppers. We picked those three vegetables as things that would be found and grown in Iowa by a horticulture farm. Also things that we know Iowans will eat and know how to put on their barbecue grill in the summer. And then we added strawberries and raspberries. And again, looking at some different varieties of those. We did add asparagus, honeyberries, and grapes outside of the DOE grant, because Iowa State had some interest. Some PhD students wanted to try them out. So we're looking at how the panels protect grapes during frost this winter. So on a day like today where it's negative 13 degrees out, we're going to see if the grapes can survive. And then we have bees on site for pollination and also honey production to give a varied income source for our farmers to look at different ways to leverage it. So far, what we saw was summer squash had a very, very good year. It grew really, really well under the panels. Our vegetation, because the panels protected it during some of the high heat, high direct sunlight opportunities of a Midwestern summer, did not stress the plants as much. Peppers grew really well. Broccoli, probably not the ideal plant. Almost everything grew better under panel than in direct sunlight outside of the broccoli. And so that was a very positive thing for us to showcase that, the panels actually provided some benefits to the production of the horticulture crops that we grew. And then one of the things that was not expected was we saw the Japanese beetle, which is fairly common in Iowa. We found that it stayed away from plants that were under and around the panels, but ate the plants that were in the direct sunlight. And so still have to do some further investigation with the entomologists on why and how that happened. But that was one of the interesting things we learned in the first growing year.
Super cool. So as a marketer, my mind goes to, are there fruits and vegetables? Are they sold to the public, and are they marketed as, hey, these are agrivoltaic, fruits and vegetables? Like, how are you guys getting these into people's hands and stomachs? And are you kind of playing up this innovative approach to make them seem, more interesting?
Yeah, great question. So with it being the farming practices all being funded by the Department of Energy for the first 4 years, we cannot sell any of the things that are grown. Once they do the evaluations and the marketability of the products, and getting all the data from the harvests, it's actually being donated to the food banks in Story County, as well as the on-campus student pantry to provide fresh fruit and vegetables to students. But what we are doing is the economists are looking at the values and the prices and the harvests and being able to provide a quantifiable, hey, if this went to market, here's what could be sold, here's the value of the products.
So what's the big picture potential for agrivoltaics, either for Alliant or more broadly for clean energy generation? Like, how repeatable is this? Does all the sensors and stuff, increase the cost of these arrays? Like, kind of walk me through where you see agrivoltaics heading based on some of the findings you guys have seen as part of this pilot.
We are, as I know it, the only regulated investor-owned utility in the country exploring this. I think it becomes another avenue to get that social acceptance around the U.S. in solar development. This has shown us that you don't have to have a bespoke system, that you can put in what is considered industry standard here in the upper Midwest, and that you can do farming practices in and around the panels that can provide additional income to landowners or tenant farmers. From our perspective, we see the high-value cropping systems being right now the best way to do it, because you don't have to really change the construction practices that we do here at Alliant Energy, and we think that there's avenues to continue to replicate this. The sensors and things that you asked about, those things we're doing from a research standpoint at Iowa State, those don't necessarily need to be on any future projects to the same level that we have there. Again, we're trying to create an academic environment for those faculty to be able to publish really quality research. I think the big thing is the scalability. Fruits and vegetable farming does take a little bit more labor than commodity cropping. So that's one thing that we're going to continue to look at, ways that it can have opportunity. I think there's also opportunity in the sense of, if a landowner is not interested in farming the land, but there's interest to put in solar, and yet farming practices could still be available, I think there's an opportunity for, say, a nonprofit or an ag association to come in and provide new ag careers or supplemental incomes for families who want to do horticulture cropping systems. And then there's other opportunities like grazing sheep. It has been shown to be very, very successful across the United States. So I think there's different ways the agrivoltaic opportunities can be deployed. We've just found a niche here at Iowa State with the high value cropping systems.
Now, renewable energy development can be contentious. What pushback have you seen in terms of renewables generally or the solar farm in particular, and how do you address those?
One thing that comes up often is somebody will say, hey, I had X solar developer reach out to me and offer me a certain dollar an acre for my farmland. Why would I ever think about doing that? I get that question a lot when I'm out at the Iowa State Fair promoting this project. Simply I go back and say, well, it's your choice on what you want to do with your land. If it makes economic sense to say yes, why not do it? There's an opportunity in certain areas where there's some soil that's not as ideal for corn or soybeans, or you need a diversification and you want to take some land out of commodity production and you want to diversify and add fruits and vegetables as a way. When we bring farmers on site, they can see that and they can see the value that it brings, similar to the value that taking 2 to 4 acres out of production for a wind turbine. Farmers see the value in that because they can make, annually those lease payments can be, $20,000 to $25,000. Hey, I'm going to make a guaranteed income over these maybe 4 or 5 acres. That becomes a good value proposition when your commodity prices are, yo-yoing up and down. And this just becomes one more mechanism that Iowans and folks across this country, as they look into different land use purposes, could be an option that helps our communities thrive.
We call this show With Great Power, which is a nod to the energy industry. It's also a famous Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility. So, Nick, what superpower do you bring to the energy transition?
I think I bring the superpower of valuing relationships, or valuing people, and being able to help everybody interpret the same shared vision that's going to drive long-term economic and community impact. I know that that's kind of a wild superpower. It's not, I can't see the future. I can't fly, but I think I can harmonize pretty darn well and coalesce some of the smartest people in the world to do things that are greater than any one of us could do by ourselves.
Well, Nick, thank you very much for coming on the show and walking us through this very innovative project. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Nick Peterson is the Strategic Partnerships Manager for Alliant Energy. With Great Power is produced by GridX in partnership with Latitude Studios. Delivering on our clean energy future is complex. GridX exists to simplify the journey. GridX is the enterprise rate platform that modern utilities rely on to usher in our clean energy future. We design and implement emerging rate structures, and we increase consumer investment in clean energy, all while managing the complex billing needs of a distributed grid. Our production team includes Aaron Hardick and Mary Catherine O'Connor, and Bailey is our senior editor. Stephen Lacey is our executive editor. Sean Marquand composed the original theme song and mixed the show. The GridX production team includes Jenny Barber, Samantha McCabe, and me, Brad Langley. If this show is providing value for you, and we really hope it is, we'd love it if you could help us spread the word. You can rate or review us at Apple and Spotify, or you can share a link with a friend, colleague, or the energy nerd in your life. As always, thanks for listening. I'm Brad Langley.